We're live.
Yo, yo, yo. What is up, everybody, and welcome to Vancity Beats, Eats, and More. We are here today for season 2 of the show. Shoutouts to TELUS STORYHIVE On Location for extending this crucial programming, where if you are just tuning in for the first time, the intention of Vancity Beats, Eats, and More is to highlight and showcase the creative community of Vancity by interviewing people who are musicians, beat makers, artists, dancers, and people who are involved in the creative community who are investing their time and energy into the beautiful and colorful creative fabric that we get to experience here in Vancity. And now the land that we are on is the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And we're very, very grateful to be here today to live on the land that they've cared for since time immemorial. Right now, I'm really, really excited because we are joined by a friend, Alex Penney, also known as Pendamental, who is a DJ who has a show at B-Side Radio called Funk Bazaar, also an interactive installation artist who's had art installations at Bass Coast Music Festival, also a music producer and audio engineer who works with a local world-class recording studio called Monarch Studios, and fresh off dropping your first full-length album last year called 2 Days in Time, featuring some amazing local collaborators. And in addition, Pendamental also works here where we are currently sitting at Lobe Studio, which is a 4-dimensional spatial sound studio. So
thanks, Jamal.
Thank you.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
How are you feeling today?
Feeling pretty good. I just got off 8 hours of spatializing some weird sounds in this space, so I'm slowly coming back to Earth.
Yeah, well, and we're about to dive right into that. Can you tell us a bit about Lobe Studio? Like, when did it come about? Do you know how it came about?
Yeah, so Lobe Studio is a 4D sound, spatial sound installation here in Vancouver, BC. It was started by the co-founders, Kate Delorme and Ado Van Bremen. Both of them come from kind of different multimedia backgrounds in Vancouver. Ado's been a musician for years, played in bands, including like Brastronaut, a couple others, and Kate is more into like the theater and dance world, also an audio engineer and an artist in her own right. And they both did a residency at the 4D sound warehouse in Budapest years ago, met over that or through that kind of connection, and wanted to bring something like this out west. So Lobe is the first official 4D sound studio in North America.
Wow.
And it's kind of started a little bit of a chain here, and other things are popping up, and we're doing some different installations in different parts of BC here. But basically that's it. It's like a world-class, cutting-edge spatial sound experiment that Vancouver's lucky enough to have here in our city.
Yeah, and how did you get involved with the space?
So basically, I reached out to them, said I really wanted to get involved, and I'll do anything. I'll sweep floors, I'll volunteer, whatever, just to kind of get in the door. And they were happy to have me and super gracious to open their doors to me and let me kind of get familiarized with the system and that. And that's kind of how it started. I guess personally, though, for me, I'd heard about this 4D sound group who was doing this crazy cutting-edge spatial audio stuff in Europe. I think they started in maybe 2011 or 2012. I kind of heard about them in like 2014, 2015. had like reached out and just had a little bit of communication, but then kind of left it for 4 or 5 years. And then I heard through word of mouth here in town, through studio talk and through musicians and stuff, that this place had popped up. And that was open in January of 2020, so kind of crazy time to open a place like this. And I think I reached out in about March or April that year. And they kind of welcomed me in, but also it was a weird time where nothing could be happening in the space.
Yeah.
So they weren't hosting events. They weren't like having a bunch of people in. So it was kind of sitting empty for a lot of the time. So I would come in here at night and just like practice and work on the system and play with it. And that's kind of led to just like figuring out techniques and kind of getting good at using this sort of media. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And
Yeah.
so in terms of a 4-dimensional spatial sound studio, I mean, I'm sure that there are some of our viewers out there who are hearing about this type of venture or space for the first time. Can you explain what some of the intricacies are in terms of the way the studio is built?
The biggest thing I'd say is the more you talk about it, it doesn't get that much more clear until, so you have to come down here. You have to come to this space and have a listen to one of the pieces that were created on this medium to really understand it. And you maybe know what I mean, because you've been in here for the pieces, and it's really kind of a vague sort of description until your ears are in here.
Yeah.
But I'll break it down kind of as best I can, I guess. So there are 35 speakers in this room. So there's 9 of these. I'm not sure if you can see on the film, but 9 of these omnidirectional speakers in a grid on the ceiling.
Okay.
9 of the same speakers in a grid below the floor. And then Lobe has this special vibrating floor, which is one of a kind in the world. And it's 16 vibrating wooden panels, and they're called vibrotransducers. And then there's a sub. And basically, whereas in normal stereo music, you can mix left and right. And then in something like Dolby 5.1, like surround sound, you can mix left and right and back left, right, and center sort of thing. And then there's kind of iterations of this. The 4D sound thing is like a medium that allows you to mix, disregarding the speakers, in 3 dimensions and move things in those 3 dimensions.
Wow.
That's kind of maybe a quick explanation, but truly you have to just come in and listen to it and hear what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you did a really good job explaining in words how the structure of the space is set up. And that is true. Like I'm lucky and that I've been able to come to this amazing space, by the way. It's beautiful when you come in here too. Really welcoming and warm. And for your Sunday Orbit events, which I consider like therapeutic, because it's like the end of the week, you come here, you just lay down on the ground, close your eyes, and be taken away by the sounds that are performed spontaneously and most of the time like improvised here by you and your colleagues.
That's
so
right.
Yeah.
So that's one kind of type of show. A lot of the things here too are pieces that have been composed and mixed for the space, which are more like playback sessions. And like you said, people can come in and lie down and relax. I always like to think of it kind of as a sound gallery. So like an art gallery will have things on the walls or like things to look at. Lobe is kind of a space where you enter for a pure sonic experience, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's kind of nice, I find, and what I've found that people enjoy about the space is that it kind of gives an alternative to like the typical night out or like the club going out scene that is fun, and I love that. But having an option where it's more like low key, it's maybe not so like alcohol and party based, but it's more like passive and relaxing and centering and grounding and all those sorts of words, and more you come out feeling refreshed and kind of uplifted a little bit. It's been a nice thing to offer people in the community.
Yeah, and it's awesome. The public has access to certain events and stuff. And then, as you mentioned at the very beginning, you said you were in here for 8 hours already today. What were you doing?
So Lobe has an artist residency program where we take applications from all sorts of artists. Doesn't have to be music or even sound art primary. People from all over the map, and literally all over the map. I think the artist today was from Toronto, and the one this morning, well, there was a pair of them this morning. One was from Vancouver, one was from Edmonton. And so these residencies, they get between 1 week up to 4 or more weeks to come in and build out a piece of 4D sound. So sometimes they're reinterpreting work they've already done into this new medium, into this new like spatial sound medium. Sometimes they're kind of composing for the space or building up sound experiments for the space. So that's a main part of Lobe is providing these artist residencies to people who are interested in trying out this new medium, since not a lot of people have access to this sort of thing. Yeah.
And in terms of your role, like facilitating these sessions, how do you work with someone who is new? Or
Yeah, so like I said, it's people from all sorts of experience backgrounds and like artistic backgrounds. So some people are really familiar with sort of music production and like DAW stuff, which is kind of what the software is based on.
Yes, for people out there, DAW is Digital Audio Workstation, which is a computer program used to track and record audio.
Mm-hmm. And some people are like visual artists and they've never worked the sound field at all. So my job as like a technician or like an engineer helper for them is to provide them with whatever knowledge they need to best realize their project goals. So whether that's kind of teaching them how the system works and then being there for support as they kind of work through their own project and kind of use the system themselves, or whether it's more like doing the manual operation of the system and they're doing more direction and artistic sort of production on it. So I kind of gauge that as from like the intro of the artist and their description of the project and their experience levels and what they're looking to get out of it. And it changes a bit from artist to artist. So in short, just being support and a knowledge base of how the system works and maybe giving them some tips and tricks on how to use it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's kind of it, yeah.
And for such a fresh endeavor too, how does it feel to be involved like in something that is new to North America in the city you live in and that you get to be a part of that?
I couldn't be more excited about it. And I know I'm not that excitable of a person, but really I'm so stoked to have this here. And I think it's like, for me, it's like a game changer as far as like how we perceive sound and like the mode of listening in a way. And there's a lot of people who feel the same. Not necessarily everyone comes in and it's mind blowing, but for the people who are like into this stuff, it's like pretty mind blowing. It's like it's a game changer when you hear it. And there's something kind of like powerfully emotional about it too. And part of that might just be from like the experience of listening to something purely for the sake of listening with like no other motives or like distractions. So that part is like kind of special in itself. But yeah, having access to this in our city and like getting to be on the forefront of figuring out what to do with this crazy thing is unreal. Yeah. And I know that we're doing some like different stuff over here than the people in Europe are doing, who are also making some crazy art with it over there. But there's kind of like this really special feeling of like this being on the West Coast, and that being kind of like what's pushing this medium out here, because we kind of bring a different flavor to it that I think is really fun. Yeah.
Nice.
Like we're making rap music in 4D right now. It's crazy. It's awesome. Yeah.
Bringing all sorts of styles to the system.
Yeah. As well as a lot of other types, but like, yeah, I don't know if anyone else is doing that.
That openness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That maybe is the West Coast flavor.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're really lucky that in addition to these verbal descriptions that you are receiving of the space, Alex, aka Pendamental, is kind enough to also show us how this works in terms of like the computer software side of it. So we're gonna switch over now and move to this desk.
And I'll give like a more of a words description and an outline of how it works without maybe showing what the exact inner workings of the software are, but I think that works, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do that. So now we're moving to the spaceship.
So, how best to describe this in words?
Yeah, and maybe what are we looking at right now?
We're looking at basically a 3D diagram of our room here in Lobe with these dots, if you can see that, being the speakers in the room. There's 9 up here, 9 down here, and then 16 of these vibro transducers that we talked about. And basically, this thing in the middle, we'll keep it simple with one. We can have like a whole bunch of these things. But this thing in the middle is like a sound hologram. So it is basically, I'll send out a piece of audio to this object, we'll call it. And then you can move that object around and stuff in the room using the software. But if I play something out of it, and we can hear this in the room in 4D. You at home just have to kind of imagine what we're doing here. But I'll move it over to this corner of the room. So now the piano is in that one corner. Maybe I'll sweep it back over here.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll put it over this corner. So that's pretty fun. Maybe I'll put it like on a path circling around, and us in here, we can kind of feel it circling.
And this is like an automated version.
I'll space it
You're
out.
setting the sound on a path.
Totally. And I'm sending it like a, and then also if I, maybe I'll drop it down into the floor and just crank up some of these vibrators. I mean, it's not the bassiest audio, but we should still be able to feel some effect.
I can feel it under my feet.
And as it kind of passes through us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get a little bit of that sense. And right now we can hear some like Doppler effect on it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
moving
like
closer and away.
that sound of like if a siren passes you in the street, that sort of thing. So they built that in so you can get a little bit of that or go way unnatural. Something like that. And so we started with this bit of piano. So I have some crazy like we could get a little bit of
Okay.
a little crazier here with some weird spatial effects which are kind of bouncing around the room right now. Ooh, but I'm just gonna kill that for now. Okay, so I have one piece of like stereo audio that's going through a left and right object here.
Yeah.
And that's just one thing. We can add in a bunch of these objects. Maybe it can be a different shape or something.
Ooh.
And send out some other thing to that object, which is now sitting on the far end of the room as our piano continues to circle around the room around us and under us.
So now you've added another layer.
Another layer. And let's see, I'll put in there. And yeah, you can stack up these layers and send, I have access to, send multiple pieces of audio to the same hologram or object over there, or the same audio out to multiple objects, I guess.
And then control them to move differently?
Exactly, yeah, and you kind of build up your universe over there. So a super kind of simplistic example of this. Yeah, so now we have a singing bowl kind of on the one side and this piano track still going around us there.
I think people watching this could pick up on some of this spatial audio because maybe you're hearing something fainter that would represent it being further away in the space.
Yeah, as far as where our mics are,
yeah,
that sort of thing.
And not only are things able to move laterally or left to right, but they can move up and down as well, like what you're doing with the yellow hologram.
Up and down, all around, be like really specifically localized in one point of the room.
Yeah.
Or be like super immersive and washy and really like envelop you in the room.
Nice.
And then you can get into like, not that you can really hear this as we have it, but we can get into some kind of more like intense sort of spatialization and like with spatial delay and stuff, so things bouncing around the room. You can kind of emulate like different spaces to be in, so you can make it sound like you're in a much smaller room than we actually are, or like a much bigger space than we actually are. And that's kind of one of like the really interesting and unique qualities about 4D sound.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I guess maybe just to note on like how this works in the space, and what's really cool is like you said, if you have like some subby stuff and like some really low frequencies and like washy stuff up top, you can kind of just immerse people. Like you get like enveloped in this, like in the sound. It really puts you in the sound in a way that's hard to describe until like you lie down on the floor and get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
So everybody who's out there watching, this is a space that hosts public events and that you can buy tickets for and attend by checking out their website, Lobe Studio.
Lobestudio.ca. And yeah, there's like usually an event after every residency. They'll usually do like a performance or like a showcase of the work they've done through that residency.
The artist in residence will do a final reveal.
The final reveal.
Nice.
Yeah, usually it's like a Thursday or Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah.
And then if I'll just plug a couple local
things
while we're at it.
Yeah, please.
We're doing a series called Magic Carpet.
Ooh.
Which is going to be next weekend at this old carpet shop just outside of Granville Island.
Okay.
So Ado and Vanessa and Ian are going to be spearheading that, and it's going to be 3 nights of live performance on this like location-based 4D installation, which should be super cool and vibey. Because yeah, it's called the Magic Carpet, and that's kind of what it is in here. You get in the carpet and you get transported to like different realms of sound.
Yes.
So that's one I'll put on people's radar if you're interested in checking something out.
Nice.
There's also some like monthly events here. Like you said, myself and Dave Biddle, aka Copyright Linda Fox, do a monthly thing called Sunday Orbit on the last Sunday of the month.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fun And then we just goof around and make some weird sounds and
Yeah.
have some fun. And it can get nice and deep, and it can get silly and irreverent, I guess. Yeah. What else? We're doing also like an on-location spatial sound festival at the end of February.
Ooh, okay.
Don't know how many details I can share
Yeah.
yet, but that's happening at Performance Works on Granville Island, February 19th to 26th. We did one last year in the same location in December, and it was a mega success.
Yeah.
And this year we're just beefing it up and making it better. So that's going to be fun if you're interested.
And
Yeah.
that was in terms of the last year's fest. There was the speakers from Lobe taken to this space, right? Is that what you're planning to do again?
Yes, as well as I think we have 18 others that we're going to bring, and probably stack like 6 subs as well, and then some other treats. Yeah, I'll leave it at that, but it's basically like this system on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a bigger space and kind of a different tone.
Yeah. That's amazing too, that this that what is in here can also be taken out and taken to a new environment.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've done that a few times, I guess, these sort of like outside location installations, including at Base Coast, which you were able to visit us there this past year. We built like a geodesic dome and hung a speaker array in there and did like an outdoor 4D sound thing at Base Coast, which is totally my like dream. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for showing us how the system works. Definitely encourage people in Vancity to check out Lobe Studio and attend an event here, because as Alex has been saying, like it's completely different. It's a completely different experience of how you experience audio, and it's different in the type of event and feeling that you go away with as well. So if you are open to that, then definitely come check out Lobe Studio. I know also in terms of your album that you released last year, or this year.
Last year, I think.
2 days in time. There was an event here where we were invited to come and listen to it spatialized for this space.
That was released this year. Yeah.
That one,
so I
yes.
just released that in September, like the 4D version of it, which is quite a bit different than the album itself, but it was what it was always meant to be.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
To be 4D?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was just kind of made with the intention of bringing it into this form.
Okay. And how did you take it from like stereo 2 channels to make it work in this space?
So I stemmed it out, which means like I took like different parts from a song. So I'd have like kick drum as a stem, one full length like piece of audio for just the kick drum, just the snare drum, just like hi-hats, say, just the bass, whatever that was, just a guitar. So basically all the kind of elements of that song.
Yep.
And then I brought it in here and pulled them all apart, kind of rearranged everything, and then mixed them into a 3D setting rather than a 2D stereo setting. And really just like hammered away a lot of hours in here trying things and playing with things, and put in the time, and came up with something.
And the play, like you keep kind of coming back to this idea of like playing around or experimenting.
Yeah.
Like, how important has that been to your experience in Lobe?
Yeah, I think that's like maybe outside of Lobe too, like for any sort of thing. I think that is kind of like one of the most important things, to like get comfortable with something and get experience with something and get good at something, because that's the time that that's when you can spend the time, is when it's just the play. And that's how you find things out, and when you're not afraid to make mistakes, and when you can try things without like being worried about consequences. Maybe that's saying the same thing. But that's when you learn, I think. And also, I think you have to be having fun all the time with this stuff. Or not all the time, but like if you've lost the fun, then you've kind of lost the point of doing something. So like as long as you're still playing with it, it's okay.
Yeah. There's discovery.
Mm-hmm.
There's mistakes, like you said, but just not being afraid
Yeah.
of making those. And then what you learn from that experimentation too. Was there anything that you learned for your album when you transferred it to 4D that you were really stoked on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always learning different techniques and things. I think with this one, I've done a few different pieces of like conventional music translated into 4D. So like taking things that were mixed in stereo and bringing them into this medium. And it's been a battle sometimes. And I've found it hard to like keep like the cohesiveness of songs that were like made for another intention in this medium. So I think what I finally felt like I achieved a little bit with that mix was like keeping things bumping. Like it still felt like I wanted to groove a little bit through it, which felt good, I guess. And that was maybe based on just like some mix techniques and like how to keep things cohesive in such a drawn out, like wide space. I don't know if that was a very great description, but
even as what you showed us on the computer program there, like there is infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
And you are creating your own space.
Yeah.
Within this space, but that space is endless.
Totally.
So,
and maybe I'll add something too. You told people to come check it out if you're interested, but also come like explore the residencies if you're interested in making something here. Because what I'm really stoked about is just what other people come up with. Like you said, it's infinite possibilities. I'm doing one way of doing things, and I'm like trying some things out. Other people working here are doing have totally different approaches and are making like wildly different things.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see like what new people bring to the space, because there's no rules right now. You can just like, we're the ones like like making just making the rules for it, I guess.
Yeah.
No, that's not a good way to put it. Like we're the ones who are like discovering what this thing can do.
Yes.
And it's so cool to see what each new mind brings to that.
Yes. Different perspective, different ideas, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
For your album 2 Days in Time, that was in relation to your experience as like a recording and audio engineer and music producer with Monarch Studios. How long have you been working with Monarch?
I've been at Monarch for almost 8 years now. Yeah, just about 8 years. First of those was like as an intern, as everyone needs to do there. And then as an engineer for the next bunch, and just the last couple of years, I guess, like a senior engineer there.
Yeah.
But yeah, been there for a long time, and I love that place too. Yeah.
And what is your role when you're wearing the hat of audio engineer?
That's a good question. To get the best sounds I possibly can and the smoothest running session that's possible for the artist.
And
that's what I'd say.
Nice. What kind of artists are you working with in these spaces?
A lot of different people from different worlds, I guess. I guess maybe I like to work in like more like jazz, electronic, hip hop, and like world kind of music, but we do a little bit of everything. Yeah. Right now, some artists that I'm like really excited about who I work with over there are Kofi, who you know, a local hip hop and groovy dude.
Shout outs Kofi. Also, madman with the freestyle rap.
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another group that I got to shout is Pilk Silk. They're some of my favorite. They're sisters, throat singing duo who are just really awesome creatives, and I love their stuff. And yeah, maybe I'll say those two out for now. But it's a whole range of stuff that we get through there for sure.
Yeah, and you're working with all these different types of bands or people who are creating different music while you're at Monarch.
Every day is different.
Yeah.
Which is what keeps it fun too, I guess.
Yeah. And for your album, what did you envision for your album? I mean, I feel like for some people, their first album can have so much leading up to it, or like it's kind of like a culmination of like someone's whole life up to that point. You know, what was your vision for your first album?
I definitely had like a theme to go in with. I don't think I took it as seriously as like the culmination of my life up to that point, but I'd like I came in, my idea was to like bring in some material and then gather a bunch of like my friends and people I'm close with and people I really love as artists, and just get the studio for like 2 24-hour days, live out of there, and then just jam some stuff. So basically I came in with like 8 pretty fully formed instrumentals, but with like holes and spaces and room for vocals and stuff. And then there was a group of about, I don't know, 10 or 12 of us, or yeah, maybe 12, who over the 2 days just kind of hung out, instrumentalists and a bunch of vocalists, and just kind of like threw beats at people. Maybe had given a couple people them beforehand so they could kind of like work on it, but it was mostly just like throwing stuff out, and whoever wanted a verse could like get in the booth and throw a verse down, and then would maybe like come up with a hook, and then like some like Kudo would go play some percussion over it. And yeah, it was just kind of just wanted to capture like a fun studio experience. Like I think that was the big thing for me after like having been working in a lot of different sessions and seeing a lot of the different vibes. I just wanted to have like a super fun couple days with people and then see what came out of that, and I hope that translated a little bit. Yeah.
And those were the 2 days.
That was the 2 days.
2 days in time.
Yeah.
Nice. How did you meet all of these people that you invited to collaborate with you on the album?
I think a lot of them actually like musically came from like the Stew Jams, if you remember that.
Oh yes, shout out Stew Jams.
Shout out Stew Jams.
We interviewed Larissa. Kazi interviewed Larissa in our season 1.
Nice,
so,
one of my favorite people out there.
Shout outs.
Yeah, so like her and Chris and Rupert started the Stew Jams in like, I don't know, 2019 something?
I think maybe a bit earlier.
2018.
Nice.
Holy, because it was almost done by I guess the pandemic is kind of when it maybe wrapped up. It doesn't feel that long ago, but I guess it was about 2018. And then that was like a melting pot of musicians and artists.
Literally,
and stuff. Yeah,
a melting pot.
Yeah,
it was a stew.
I didn't want to say no pun intended there. I just wanted to pass that by, but we'll address it. And so I'd known like a bunch of the people from before, but maybe not in like that sort of musical collaboration sense. And so some people like that, through that, someone like David Ward I've worked with in various capacities on his music. He was a feature on that. My neighbor, who's like one of my really close friends and a really great guitarist, he did the guitar on it. So just kind of like a hodgepodge of like people that I really just wanted to all get together. People I wanted to hang out with, really.
Yeah.
It's just an excuse to hang out with people.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the element of fun is a common theme in your life.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, which is amazing. Like, I feel that there is so much of that F word that is not, that is lost or kind of strays away from our lives.
Yeah. And you see that in like creative things too. Like if you get too serious, and maybe it's just me, because I guess like there are benefits to some people if they work a different way. But if you get too like stressed out and serious and like not enjoying the process of what you're creating, then what's the point, I think.
Like, why are you doing it?
Yeah. But maybe they come up with some great stuff too, and so I don't want to say don't do that, but it's not my way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you answer to that? Why do you make music?
'Cause I don't know, it feels good. Yeah. I mean, we all like music. We're all kind of get music in this way, and I don't know. Yeah, it feels good and it's fun. Yeah.
That's it. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
what else are we going to do here?
Exactly. We did an interview a couple days ago with Beaumont Studios tenant Tien the Wizard, and Tien mentioned about that excitement, feeling excitement about something and following that.
Totally, yeah. Something that kind of remotivates you, and you kind of find a new, like, you keep finding that thing as it continues to grow. Yeah.
Did it start with making music for you, or because you also DJ? What was your entry into music?
Well, like, I guess I played piano growing up. Maybe that was the entry. Like, going back, I guess more like family was the entry.
Yeah.
And I played piano growing up through like until maybe like grade 9, so like 5 to 14, like pretty intensely. And then maybe stepped away from like directly being involved with music for a number of years until I kind of started making beats and got into like Ableton stuff. And that was in my early 20s. Started playing around with that, and then took some courses in that Beat Drop out of Calgary, who you know, I think. Yeah.
Were you in
Shout out
Calgary
Beat
at
Drop.
the time?
Yeah, I was in Calgary at
Oh.
the time. I went to school there, and then after that, kind of was doing some different things and kind of like figuring some things out and making some beats and stuff. And then I guess I just loved that world. Like, I loved this world of music and electronic music too and stuff. And then made the move to pursue it out in Vancouver. So it kind of came, I guess, from like beat making and being interested in like making electronic music in a way. But not to say that I'm like super electronic music focused, because I love acoustic stuff and band stuff. But that was just kind of my in. That's just like what allowed me to kind of have a bit of a creative outlet, was like that form of it. And so, yeah, and then came out here and just got dipped into other things, started DJing and engineering and stuff. And yeah, I guess that's a pretty like scattered response to that.
Who did you connect with when you moved out here to Vancity?
Well, I took like an engineering course at this old school called PAVI, Pacific Audio Visual, and maybe through there I met some people that kind of took me on some paths. One person I became close with was Alex Foth, aka For the Record, like a local DJ and big time record collector out here.
Yes.
Beat Street guy.
Yep.
So I moved in with him and had like a couple of years living with him, which was like a total university of record stuff.
Yeah.
Records, University U of R. And also in that time, someone I went to school with was Sam Moffat, was like a really dope DJ, and he's part of like Naturalist, his duo out of Fernie, who's makes some rad music and good DJs. So kind of got into that world a little bit, and I don't know, like just snowballed some things. Yeah.
You mentioned too that you said your family like got you into music, or was your entry. What was it like growing up with your fam? How were your parents musically involved or sharing music with you?
Well, I heard like music skips a generation in a way. My grandparents were both like very musical, and they had like one set of grandparents, and they're both like players at piano, violin, trumpet, sort of thing. And my parents aren't like musical, they'd say, but they're big lovers of music. My dad would always have records playing, like would always have like, I don't know, like classic rock stuff as well as like prog rock and lots of jazz and lots of weird like out there things too. And my mom was more like Joni Mitchell and like more folk and that sort of side of things. And then my older sister is she was like a jazz pianist, and she went to Cap and kind of was really involved in the jazz world, which kind of rubbed off on me a little bit, that sort of interest. So yeah, like prog and jazz sort of thing was a big part of my upbringing. And then through like friends and people I would hang out with, like teenagers through early 20s, like hip hop was a big influence.
Mm-hmm.
And sample-based stuff, and as well as like electronic music. Yeah, maybe that's where those kind of roots come from.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you grow up?
Kelowna.
Okay.
Born and raised K-Town, BC.
Shout out to K-Town.
Shout out K-Town, yeah. And then I moved to Calgary for school in 2006, lived there for like 8 years, and then moved out here for 10 years almost.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What were some of your influences, people that inspired you, or musicians that inspired you when you were first starting to make your own music?
Probably like People Under the Stairs and Tribe Called
Ooh,
Quest.
yes.
Maybe that's like the top couple for me. And then like obviously, well, not obviously, you don't know me out there.
We're getting to know you.
Beatles, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, like making stuff maybe has like some different inspirations just because like the methods I was using to make stuff. So yeah, like sample-based hip-hop for sure, and like house stuff. But influences in general in music are more maybe wide-ranging.
Yeah. Like, do you have any examples?
Say like Herbie Hancock and like Headhunters stuff, or like like Bob James, or more out there stuff like Bad Plus or Esborn Svensson Trio, like jazz, like definitely jazz based stuff. I like was a huge Primus fan growing up.
Okay.
From like age 10 to like, I still am, but like 10 to 16 I was such a big Primus fan. Yeah, so like a little bit of all over the map stuff. Mm-hmm.
How would you describe your style?
I'd say like chill, down tempo, funky based stuff. I'd say the album, it falls in like down tempo house, hip hop.
Yeah.
World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very groovy.
I wish I had a better like more abstract term to describe my stuff, but let's keep it genre based.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's, in terms of abstract, especially in this space, in the 4D space, you could get really abstract. Mm-hmm. But one thing I've experienced from coming here and having you facilitate sessions or being part of the sessions is that there is like a beat. Mm-hmm. Not all the time, but it usually comes back to something rooted in that.
Definitely. And yes, that's like a big part of myself, especially in a place like this where like it gets real spacey and ambient and new agey sometimes, which is grand, but I always like to, I need a beat. I need to come back to just something like that you can nod your head to.
Yeah.
And that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like having a little bit of rhythm and groove to things, at least sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you excited about in the Vancity music community right now?
I'm excited. I think the underground scene is like about as good as I've ever seen it in Vancouver.
Healthy. Very healthy.
It's very healthy.
Yes.
There's lots of venues. There's like some cool hi-fi systems around town, and like the DJ culture is awesome. And yeah, like the dance music underground party scene is awesome right now, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and shout out to like the people, the younger generations coming up, because they are a big part of that.
Totally.
Yeah, finding venues and putting on events.
Yeah, they've got the energy to do it, and
Yeah.
they're doing it big time. And like the scene is really friendly and like welcoming, and it seems really positive, at least from my experience right now, which is nice. Like, yeah, there's not a lot of like the exclusionary or like arrogance or attitude kind of things that you sometimes see in that culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm pretty hopeful about it. I'm pretty inspired by this generation that's doing things right now. Yeah.
How would you say the Vancity music community like supported you in your endeavors?
No one supported me. I did it all myself. No, I'm just kidding. It was like, I think everyone is so eager to get other people work and to like hire people and like to kind of keep that flow going. That is one thing I found, is that like people would like or like try and reach out and like offer a little bit of work when you're starting out, which kind of just helps you get the wheels rolling at the start, and then kind of helps that barrier of just being able to break in and get your first few gigs sort of thing. Yeah, like whether it's like engineering work or like DJ gigs, just people, reaching out and maybe giving you an opportunity that they didn't have to. And then things like, I got to shout out Stu Jams again, like that gave such a platform for so many of us like younger kind of people. And I wasn't like a vocalist or anything, but I DJ'd it a few times and just kind of got involved in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And things like that were just like community building initiatives are, to me, what were the most important. Yeah, because it's like a industry that you need to network in, but I'm not going to network ever. Like, I know a lot of people kind of in my position or like or like more people in the creative world are like introverted. We're not going to like go and schmooze. I'm just not going to do it. So if there's those kind of communities out there and like events that you're just interested in what's happening and the art and the music that's being made, you're just networking, whether you're aware of it or not, to the people who you actually want to work with and like want to like make connections that'll be fruitful down the road. And that's where it's at, I think. Yeah.
Oh, totally. And like, yeah, because there's a more formal way of networking, which is like when we were in university, like there's this specific networking event. This is my name. But then like you said, there's the networking that you're not even in, like you don't even know that you're networking because you're just going to an event because you find it interesting, or you want to be involved or check out what's going on, and involuntarily you're just meeting people or just absorbed in the energy of that environment or event or community, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Like-minded people, and you're already sharing something.
Yeah.
Kind of, And maybe to give like a more recent example, B-Side Radio is that sort of community too. The number of people, like connections and like things that have come out of that like space for different people that I've heard from is unreal. So shout that out too.
Shout out to the Monarch Studios as well. I mean, I remember when we started B-Side, before we had even launched, you had reached out to just come and practice or something.
Yeah, I think we just had an afternoon with like, the door open.
Yeah.
Hanging out. Yeah.
And that was probably one of the first times you and I met or hung out.
Yeah.
So
I can think of that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
We're almost about to wrap up our interview here, but I want to ask you, who are 3 Vancity artists that you are stoked about, that you support, that you want our viewers out there, shout outs to our parents and families who are watching this, that you want them to know about?
Okay, well, not that these are like super out there ones, but Potato Head people, for sure. Nada, for sure. And I'm going to say Kofi, as well as like some of the collectives that Kofi's involved with, like Chaos Emblematic. Those are the three, yeah. Potato Head people is like one of my favorite bands around, and they're Vancouver based. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. No, their vibrations travel all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, people know them everywhere you go, pretty much.
Yeah.
And what about Nada?
I mean, I think if anyone's, and like maybe I should have picked some more like lesser heard of people to shout them out, but like I think if anyone's going to break out of the scene in the next like, and like really break in the next little while, they would be my bet. They got something there, yeah. And their live stuff is so fun. If you haven't been to a Nada show live, like that's the best, yeah. It's rad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kofi, I mean, you mentioned Kofi did an event here recently too.
Yeah, he was our feature for one of the Sunday Orbits in September.
And what did he do with the space?
He kind of transformed the space in a way that I haven't seen before. So he brought in like, because he's always surrounded by like really interesting creatives and dancers and stuff. So he brought in like these 4 dancers who are unbelievable, who kind of moved through the space and through the people there and just like brought this energy, which doesn't get seen here a lot. Because like we talked about, it's often like a passive, like more in your head listening thing.
Yeah.
And then projection artists who did like analog projections on the walls and the ceilings. And then we used Kofi's music and spatialized that. So it was like whipping around and got really exciting, and then also like really meditative and grounding. And and then he performed as well, both like singing, rapping, freestyling, dancing. And then we also had like a clothing feature out front, and so they decked out all the performers in clothing and then had like a rack of stuff out front.
Yeah.
And there's probably like more elements to it that I won't be thinking of right now, but it was just like super interdisciplinary, like fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really cool that Lobe Studio, the space that we're in, is open to that interdisciplinary and just open to all of these really different and new ideas and ways of using the space.
Absolutely, yeah. They're super open and welcoming, and just want to like lift people up and like see what people can do with it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. We want to also shout out Ado and Kate, who founded Lobe. Thank you so much for letting us have access to the space. Thank you for showing us like how it works as well.
Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for sharing this with people.
Once again, lobestudio.ca is where you can find information, also events and stuff. They're on Instagram as well, Lobe Studio. Mm-hmm. Where can people find your material?
You can come find me out here. You got to talk to me face to face, and maybe I'll share some things. I don't know.
Find me out here.
I released that record under the name Pendamental, so that's like on Spotify,
Bandcamp,
Instagram. Oh, Bandcamp. Yeah, if you want to buy it, Bandcamp's the place. I don't know what it is. Bandcamp.com/Pendamental, I think. And Instagram @Pendamental. Usually post if we're doing a Sunday Orbit or different events here or any sort of thing like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what are you working on for the next few months for yourself?
I am doing a lot of stuff for other people for the next few months.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping to bring something kind of new and fresh for this Spatial Sound Festival at the end of February. Because Dave and I are going to close the thing out with a big time Sunday Orbit on the Sunday of that. So I think we're just going to try and make something really special and trippy and crazy and fun for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for that festival as well. That'll probably be on the social medias and all of that.
I don't want to say too soon, but I think the first round of tickets goes on sale next week in conjunction with the Magic Carpet series that Lobe is putting on. So if you're interested, get a full ticket for that because it's the best deal and it'll be fun and wild.
Yes, fun. That's the theme
word, yeah.
of Pendamental's life and creative pursuits, which is so refreshing. Thank you so much for joining us on
Thank you,
season
Jamal.
2. Yo,
Thanks,
season
Gazzy.
2.
Thanks, Jamal.
And if you're up for a magic carpet ride or just a wild ride, come check out Lobe Studio and open your mind to what you can hear in this 4-dimensional spatial sound studio. Check out Pendamental online as well, or just find them on the streets of Vancity and ask them face to face what you want to know. My name is Jamal. We got Kazi behind the cam, and we've been joined by Mr. Alex Penney, Pendamental, and we're here at Lobe Studio in East Van. Represent. Thank you so much for tuning in. Season 2, Episode 4 of Vancity Beats, Eats,
and